Welcome back to the Dubs Only Empire YouTube account, where for the good amount of fall, I'm just going to be proving the point as to why the AP poll and the college football ranking systems don't matter in the grand scheme of things. And at the end of the day, especially with college football, all that matters is who wins out and who wins the final games of the season, not all this crummy stuff in between where we're playing nobody schools, losing to these nobody schools potentially, and then moving up and down in the rankings, and then everyone getting pissed off of, well, I think this team should be here, blah, 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 so on and so forth, right? I'm here to disprove all of that, and I did it 2 weeks ago. I wanted to post a video last week, but I was moving back into college. As you can see, I'm in a completely different room, but now we're set up, we're locked and loaded. Let's start talking about it. We're going to talk about some of the drama and some of the chaos that has ensued over the last week, but for the most part, let's just go into these rankings and talk about it for a little bit. So 1, 2, 3, we've got Ohio State, Penn State, LSU. That hasn't changed from last week. Again, really good teams so far in the season with really good wins to start off. Oregon actually ended up jumping Miami. They had a really great win against Oklahoma State and just kept putting it to them the entire game. So they ended up jumping Miami. Miami obviously still in the top 5, which is great. So you've got Miami in that 5 spot, Georgia right behind them in that 6 spot. And then this is where it starts to get kind of crazy. We've got Texas, who's already a 1-loss team, and it's not even like they played great over the weekend either. And then right behind them is a Notre Dame team that has genuinely only played 1 game and lost that game to Miami, who granted is in the 5 spot, but an L is an L, and it was an ugly L at that. Like, again, erased the 4th quarter, and Notre Dame's getting blown out. But because they had a bye week, 2nd week of the season, they end up just moving up a spot because teams in front of them lost. That's basically it. And then you've just got all of these like middle of the pack team. Again, like Oklahoma, Iowa State, Tennessee, Texas A&M, Ole Miss. They've had some decent games, yes, but they've done what they needed to do, and they've just naturally kind of gradually moved up the rankings. Nothing crazy. Illinois is also one of those teams. They had a really high rankings to start off with, and they've just been winning games. Like, you know, nothing that you can do about that. South Florida. I mean, let's talk about a team that, you know, wanted some competition, got that competition, and has showed out on all occasions. And if you don't know it already, but this matchup against Miami this coming weekend is going to be a very exciting matchup as well. Michigan obviously got that unfortunate matchup against Oklahoma on the road, and playing any SEC team on the road, especially as a Big Ten school where you're not really used to that kind of environment, can be hard. And they end up falling all the way to 23rd in their rankings, dropping them 8 spots, which I feel like is a bit much, especially since they dropped teams like Texas and Clemson to little to no spots. But hey, that's just me. Auburn making its first appearance in the rankings since, I believe it's 2023, something like that. And then Missouri as well, also making it into the rankings with their win over Kansas. Was it a great win? Not really, but I guess you got to put someone in the rankings. I would have theoretically kept Arizona State here. Yes, they got upset by Mississippi State, but to drop you like 13 spots in the rankings, again, against an SEC team school that you are not used to playing, you know, and at that SEC school, like, you know, that environment is always going to be tough to play in, whether it's a good team and whether it's a bad team. And those Mississippi State fans came out and showed up for their team because it was a ranked matchup. And ultimately, I would like to imagine that definitely helped them win the game. But they dropped out of the rankings. But we went into it a little bit on how, you know, this is mainly for production. Like, these numbers are genuinely just to promote a game and to promote viewership for said game. And the big one this week is LSU Georgia. Now, as you can see here, LSU in the 3 spot, Georgia in the 6 spot. Now, how did we get here to begin with? Obviously, LSU wins their first game against a ranked Clemson team and jumped the rankings so high to that number 3 spot. That was the first thing that was off, because the thing is that they had to jump so many teams in order to get to that spot. And then Georgia, unfortunately, dropped this week in the rankings to the number 6 spot, even though they beat Austin Peay by, I think it was like 20 points, something like that. But again, like Austin Peay, it's always Austin Peay. These SEC schools love playing Austin Peay every year. It's ridiculous. And it'll be at random points in the year as well. But they actually dropped 2 spots in the rankings to number 6, allowing Oregon to jump the gun on them. And it's almost like they didn't want to promote that 3-4 matchup, which is weird. The AP poll isn't stupid. It would be a little too obvious if in the first 3 weeks of the college football season, we have a 1-3 matchup to start off. And then 2 weeks later, we have a 3-4 matchup. And it's a 3-4 SEC matchup, week 3 of the college football season. Like, you can understand why they put certain teams in certain positions. Now, granted, Oregon played really well, but it was against an Oklahoma State team that were down their starting quarterback, down their best defensive player, and essentially Oregon did what they were supposed to do, just like they did against Montana State. But for whatever reason, the Montana State win only granted them the spots that were left from the teams that fell behind them, like Clemson and Notre Dame. But in this instance, they completely jumped Miami, who, might I add, probably had a much better start of the season than Oregon did just because of who they were playing and the matchups that they had. Yet they felt like Oregon's win against Oklahoma State for the week was better than Miami's Bethune-Cookman win over the weekend. Whereas if you just would have switched it where Oregon played Oklahoma State to start the season and then played Montana State afterwards, I guarantee you Oregon wouldn't be at the 4 spot. And that's keeping into consideration that the same scores would apply, i.e., like Oregon destroyed both of those teams. I guarantee you that because their schedule just kind of fit in perfectly, you look at Oklahoma State and go, well, like once upon a time, they're a pretty formidable Big 12 force. Not anymore, especially when they're down 2 of their best players on the team. But yet, granted, they did what they were supposed to do. They played amazing against them and really just put hurt to them. But you erased those 2 pick sixes at the end of the game, which were, again, just blatant errors from a quarterback who hadn't stepped out onto the field yet. And it's not as good as it looks. If anything, it's around the same scoreline as the Miami game, who ended up scoring 45 points against Bethune-Cookman. Like, it's those little things that the AP poll looks at and goes, okay, let's do this so that it doesn't look as suspicious as people may think. And that's why, again, imagine that in the first 2 weeks of the college football season, you'd have, or the first 3 weeks of the college football season, you'd have a 1-3 matchup and a 3-4 matchup. Like, everyone would look at that and go, okay, like now we're stretching it. Because at the end of the day, the AP poll releases these rankings for the clicks and for the, reactions to all of them so that people can have something to talk about on the show, A, and so that B, you can promote a show on the weekend with 2 great teams, depending on their rank. But at the end of the day, they know that we're not stupid, and they still want us to be engaged. And the thing is that if you're just going to put teams wherever and make it clearly obvious that you're making these rankings to promote a better matchup between better teams, then naturally people are going to click off and not listen to the AP rankings at all. Right? I'm already off the boat here, but there are so many of you out there who are still on the bandwagon, and we need to step off of it because they truly do not matter. And it's these intricate little moves like this that they make that really hone into that. And I mean, not to mention the Miami South Florida game that we're going to be going into. For starters, South Florida was a non-ranked team, beat Florida, and now move all the way up to 18th in the rankings. And now this week, they're playing on the road to 5 Miami, who, again, ironically, didn't move in the rankings and allowed Oregon to jump them, even though theoretically be Miami, Georgia, Oregon. But again, because the way that they do these rankings, they don't want it to make it too obvious. But for the South Florida game, if South Florida win, they have a win against a top 25 team, then a top 15 team, and now a top 5 team. Like, you see how, intricate it all is. The big game this weekend is going to be Georgia and Tennessee. And ironically, we see Tennessee move up 7 spots from beating Tennessee State. Like, okay, so Miami beats Bethune-Cookman by 40-plus points. Not moving. But Tennessee beats a Tennessee State team. Yes, they score 72. They give up 17. But they move up 7 spots. And this is jumping teams like Texas A&M and Ole Miss. Now, I'm not going to start advocating for Texas A&M and Ole Miss. But when you look at the games they've played, Ole Miss coming off of their SEC win against Kentucky on the road, again, not the easiest thing to do in the world. And even a team like Texas A&M, they played a Utah State team at home. And while Utah State isn't necessarily a Power 4 school, they're definitely not a Tennessee State, is all I'm saying. So I just don't get how you can cream a terrible opponent like you are supposed to, and that warrants you 7 spots in the rankings. And it's this Tennessee spot that isn't being talked about enough. And the thing is that it's clear as day. Because think about where College Game Day is going this week. Tennessee, Georgia, right? Ranked SEC matchup. It's what they live for. It's clear as day. They had a decent game to start the season. It was nothing to write home about. It was decent at best. Then they crush a terrible opponent at home, and now it's like, yeah, 7 spots. Let's give it to them. Over these teams that actually played like semi-decent teams. I'm not going to advocate for a Utah State or even for Kentucky, but the thing is that at least they're in a more advanced realm than a team like Tennessee State, right? But that's why they do this, because now you've got, oh, well, this is a top 15 matchup. Instead of saying, well, you've got a Georgia team that's in the top 10 and Tennessee that's barely scratching the top 20, because that's where they were last week. But because they have full control of what the rankings are, they jump them up to that 15 spot, and now you've got a top 15 matchup, and now everyone's talking about it. When we know what the outcome is going to be, because we've seen Tennessee play so far, and it hasn't been too convincing from them. Luckily, they get the at-home draw, and it'll be tough for Georgia to play at Rocky Top. But at the end of the day, Georgia has much more depth. They have much more greater players, and realistically, they should win the game. I'm not saying that they are going to win the game. I'm just saying that realistically, if this was a 22 versus 6 matchup, I guarantee you, A, College Game Day wouldn't be going there, and B, a lot more TVs would be turned off during the game. Granted, a lot of people would watch it because it is a good SEC matchup, but if it was at a time slot that was at the same thing as another game, that wouldn't be the case. Especially for a game like South Florida against Miami. I guarantee you, more people would watch that if Tennessee was ranked outside of the top 20, is all I am saying. And you know that for a fact as well. Think about it. Would you rather watch a top 25 ranked South Florida who just got into the rankings after beating a Florida team that was ranked inside the top 15 and exposing a top 25 team in week 1, now coming into the top 25 and playing the 5th best team in the nation? Would you rather watch that or watch a 6th ranked Georgia play a 20th ranked Tennessee on the road? Me personally, I'm taking the underdog story, and I'm watching South Florida any day of the week, ending in Y. And another game that's kind of going under the radar is Notre Dame against Texas A&M. Now, the theory is that because Notre Dame played god-awful in their first week, they should lose this game, and Texas A&M should jump in the rankings. But Texas A&M are probably going to do the Texas A&M thing and lose that game by a whole bunch of points and allow Notre Dame to stay in this 8th spot or even go up in the rankings for all I care. After all, Texas is playing UTEP. And if we're using the same logic as we've been doing these past 2 weeks, if Texas score, 50 points, but they give up 2 scores, they ain't moving. Whereas if Notre Dame beats Texas A&M, even by 1 point, they will jump Texas in the ranking no matter what. No matter what. And let's say Georgia do lose to Tennessee, I guarantee you Texas won't even move up in the rankings. And they might even put a team like Illinois up, even though they had a bye week and they play Western Michigan at home this week. But if they score 50 and only give up 1, hey, that's a quality win right there. It makes no sense, and it never will make any sense. So for all of you out there who are constantly complaining about, oh, the AP poll is wrong, da-da-da-da-da. Bro, the thing is that that's kind of their job, is to be wrong. Because it does this. It allows people to talk about it. And then not only that, but when it comes to the weekend of the matchup, it's much more exciting to watch a game between 2 teams who are outright being displayed as good and bad with a number than just saying this team versus this team. Right? It's, look at the NFL. We don't have rankings for the NFL. As an NFL fan, you just kind of have to know who the good teams are going to be. Whereas in the college football world, they're deliberately trying to force the idea that this team is good, this team is good, and this team is bad. When in reality, no one really knows who's good and who's bad. Just like in the NFL, you can have an NFL team who looks like the number 1 team in the nation. Then they play a terrible opponent, but they end up losing it because it's an off day, and theoretically they would drop way far in the rankings. But yeah, we don't do that in the NFL. It's only for college football, and the only reason why it's for college football is because there are so many teams to begin with, and B, they need to sell the ratings. Now, I'm not sure if you guys saw about the one Associated Press member who talked about her process for picking these rankings, and I mean, if that doesn't sway you a certain way, I don't know what it will take. Like, instead of getting angry about the fact of, oh, well, we need to replace this person, blah, 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 blah. We need to have these people in the range. No. Just get rid of the system altogether. We should not be having random individuals from random cities just picking, well, I think this team is good, and just having together have a collected vote to see who the top team is. It should purely be based on statistics and who you have beat. If Team A beat Team B, then Team A should be in the rankings over Team B. But the thing is that if Team A loses, or if Team B loses to Team C, but Team C beats Team A, it makes it very confusing. And that's the problem with these ranking systems. Again, we have it all summed up with our conferences to begin with. And the 12-team playoff is a great layout because it allows us to watch even more college football. But the problem is that the teams going into those rankings to begin with are just flat out wrong sometimes. We saw it last year. There were too many college football playoff games that were just complete blowouts. And we've seen it in years prior. I'm talking about a Cincinnati team. I'm talking about a TCU team in the championship game. Like, some of these teams just do not belong there. It should be an earned basis. If you win your conference, let's go to the playoffs, right? And you've obviously got your Power 4 conferences, right? Now let's take into consideration schools from the MAC, from the Mountain West, from the SWAC, all this kind of stuff. I'm not saying to put them in the playoffs to begin with, but you can easily identify who is better than who in those conferences especially. But when you're comparing the Big Ten to the SEC, it can get very difficult very quickly. So instead of trying to figure out, well, I think this team's better than, just let the stats and the record speak for themselves. And if you win the conference championship, you go to the playoffs. And as for the other 7 teams, it should just be the runners-up to said play, because the thing is that it's not even divided into divisions in most of these conferences anymore. That used to be a big problem, especially in the Big Ten. You would have a really good team from either the West or the East, and you would have a really bad team from the adjacent division. And the thing is that we got some pretty weak Big Ten like championship games just because those two teams, yes, were the best in their divisions, but one division was clearly so much better than the other. They've completely abolished that with all of the conference realignment stuff going on. And now we genuinely have the best conference team versus the second best conference team that is going throughout the regular season. We should take that information and use it for the college football playoff, is all I'm saying. But again, week in and week out, I'm going to be proving this. If you want to listen more about the AP poll voter that came out and spoke about her process, follow me, Dubs Only Empire, on Instagram and on TikTok. I'll be going into that a little bit more this week before the games kick off on Saturday, and obviously go into a little bit more with the matchups that you've already heard today. But again, please like, please subscribe, put down in the comment section some of the matchups that you're looking forward to, any insight that you may have, your personal opinions on the AP poll, whether you like them, whether you don't like them, all that kind of stuff. We're all here for it. Love the community. Make sure to subscribe and stay updated, talking about what I think the rankings are going to be. That's going to be Sunday's video, and that'll obviously come out before the AP poll actually is released. And then Monday will be my reaction to the AP poll. So make sure you're subscribed, hit the bell for notifications so you can get that notification whenever I upload those videos this weekend especially. And again, follow me on social media because I'm on there a lot, and I'm going to be posting a lot of videos on there because I got a lot of stuff to say, as you can say. So yeah, I'll see you guys this week, and